friends. It's about 2:30 a.m. and this heart is so charged, and it's so beautiful, and it's so intense that I've come to share it with you. So I haven't tried to fix myself up. You can see my various necklaces, which I usually take off, so it's not there for distraction. I don't have much light on in here, but thanks to modern technology, I can up the exposure and play with things and make it look like it's nice and bright. Okay. I just had a journal come through that's got me so high. I'm really excited by it, and it's more of the clarification. Once upon a time I thought mind was the bad guy. Once I started seeing that all of my challenges and difficulties and the various pain, depression, all of it could be sourced back to mind, well, you know, I did the logical thing that mind would do, and I made mind out to be the bad guy. Now, as it turns out, that was developmental, and it was perfectly useful. It was a way for me to come out of the powerlessness of that. The powerlessness that our programmed minds have us firmly ensconced in. And so it was like a ladder to climb up out of that. And so when you're on a ladder and you're a few rungs up, you don't look back at the earlier rungs and condemn them as wrong. They were absolutely, perfectly useful for where you were then. The upper rungs wouldn't have done you any good then. You were not in a position to make use of them. And so what I'm seeing now is from a little bit higher up on the ladder. And so there's more clarity here. There's much more clarity here, and it feels really good, especially for someone who's been swimming and floating around, mostly floating around in the emptiness. Knowing my heart just made it clear to me that being empty was what was needed. And I trust, and I have learned to trust, and my mind has learned to trust too, that what heart brings you is the perfection of the moment, the exact, perfect, the best possible gift that it could bring you for your now here. It won't necessarily be a gift you'll always be loyal to. You may transcend it. And so the anger that I generated against mind, or the anger that I had within me that I turned upon mind, that was developmental, that was useful. That wasn't any kind of a great aha and some kind of enlightenment or great wisdom. It was useful for where I was then. And it would be useful for anyone else in that kind of a now. But where I am now and where we all are now is a good way up, a number of rungs up on the ladder of frequency, of light, of waking up. And it's really exciting. having been so empty of mind for so long and feeling so foolish, I've got to tell you, in the last journals that I've been sharing with you, as I'm doing them and as I'm going back and listening to them after they're uploaded again and again, I'm feeling foolish. I'm feeling like, oh my God, the rug's out from under me again. What's it like? It's like each one of them to deliver it is like jumping off a cliff. I just don't know if there's any value or worth or anything else in it. When mind looks at it, well, see, I can't explain that. That's just what it feels like. Okay, so I have two things here. I have a short 3-page journal, and I have a heart so full of more that it wants to share. But this journal, I'm going to share it with you first. Mind would tell me to share from heart first, because the heart flow the stream might get muddied, or the flow might get lost or something by doing this other thing. But you'll see why I think in the end I'm going to do it this way. Okay, I'm giving you my journals chronologically for a change. This one is from June 3rd, the first one of that day, and the Mayan day was 12 seed. Now when you find any of the later numbers, 10 to 13, you're going to find things coming together and concluding and that kind of a thing. So, you can begin to see that if you know that it's there. Oh, this one has some special links in the written journal, and a heads up to the wise and to those who want to dive deeper within. Click over so that you can get them. All right, so what time was this one written? Yeah, 2:01 in that morning. Okay, I give up. Now it's the 10th written journal in the last 4 or 5 days. It's gone well beyond reason, but who cares? Time to stop counting, I'd say. What the heck? Will be fun later on to see what is behind all of this. What's going on? Meanwhile, hey, it's a great ride. No complaints here. This time, well, it was a time of quick manifesting. The recent live journal, the one that contains the first live 12D talk, well, it also contains my musings on how to fit the new or the current me in with the Abraham Hicks teachings. Not that I'm coming to you now with total answers, nothing like that, but I do have a beautiful contrast to report. So by sharing that, I can at least state the current paradox more clearly. I'm including 2 really great links with this transcript or written journal. I'm calling them written journal now instead of transcript, since I ad-lib so much. Well, it just kind of stretches the word transcript out of shape. Anyway, one link is a 3-hour find, an interview of both Jerry and Esther Hicks before he crossed over. So it's not terribly current, yet it's as beautiful as anything you'd want to see. It's called The Secret Behind the Secret, and I may have linked to it before, but here it is all the same. Now the other one is Adyashanti's latest free offering. He likes to give one every month, in addition to his satsang talks, which are initially free, but if you want to get them later, I think there's $10, $12, $15, something like that. Anyway, this one is 2 hours plus of a satsang called The Honest Truth. When I make this video, I'm going to include a short clip of him reading an old poem, one by St. John of the Cross. And I'll let him tell you about it. Excuse me, I've got some itching, some allergies going on. Okay, what this does for me is to put into sharp contrast the spot I find myself in. Though written by a Catholic monk, a Carmelite, Adya shares the poem as giving some of the best Buddhist teachings you can find. Interesting. Anyway, it speaks from the surrendered, the empty state. It speaks of and from the path that I have identified with all my life. So you'll get to hear, to feel, to sense a really good presentation of that. And it really hits the spot for me. So come down into heart with me if you're not here already and feel the charge of this. And then, most of you are already familiar with Abraham, so you need no introduction. And for those who do, the other link is simply perfect. But even if you've listened to hundreds of hours of their teachings, this interview video is still perfect. In it, actually, I will share with you that I actually met Jerry. Now, that's a neat trick since he's on the other side now, having left his body behind fairly recently, in the last few years, I think. And I didn't meet him physically. So anyway, both he and Esther come through so beautifully in this video that they both brought tears to my eyes at different spots. I don't know about you, but I don't choose to watch such a long, powerful video all at once. It's too much to take in and process like that on a really deep level. So I like to take breaks. Anyway, at one point, and right now I don't recall if it was, yes, it was while listening to Jerry speak to the interviewer. There is something so fine and so beautiful there that this heart reached out to embrace the beauty I saw. Well, you could have bowled me over when I felt him reach back. No kidding. I really felt his presence. We interacted for a few minutes. What a surprise. I mean, it's not my first dead person encounter, but I think it may be the first one who in this life was a stranger before the contact. Now, don't hold me to that. Memory's questionable, but it was still most unusual. And actually, it brought me to tears. I live alone. Aside from my 3 pets. I'm not used to having any close physical contact. I was married for all of 18 months, so it's been this way pretty much of my life. So when I reached out to Jerry, it was more of my heart's joy-filled love and appreciation. I get high on appreciation, often. And it was for the love and the beauty I saw radiating in him. But when he reached out to me, it was to hug me. and I cried. I sobbed, actually. Why? Well, first off, it was such a surprise. I'm not used to being hugged, even by living people, okay? So that was a big part of it. I guess it brought up some stuff I need to work through. Stuff about getting physically close to people. I'm just not used to such comfortable expressions of affection. Anyway, enough of that, I guess. It's not why I'm here. But I do love coming clean with you guys. Early on, it was pretty hard first to just put the journals, which seem so private, online to go public. And then it was pretty hard to fulfill my desire to be truly transparent, fully honest. Between those two moves, well, it has helped me work through a boatload of stuff, emotional stuff. Yet now I find it's much easier sharing silly things with you as if you were my best friend and as if it was a private coast. Go figure. No, wait, don't. That won't do anyone any good. Moving on. Actually, I might cut this kind of short. I may leave the rest for some live sharing and just use this as an intro. But I don't know. It being 2:23, as in before dawn, well, not necessarily thinking too straight. I just wanted to get this said before laying down for some sleep. I only thought I'd given up on the clock before. Now it seems like the early morning hours find me at the journal more and more. No, well, just following heart. And I hope and I trust that you're finding it easier to do that yourself. Why else spread myself out before the world like this, huh? Actually, though, it's not really done to benefit you. I've got to admit, it's very selfish on my part. How is that? I get such deep pleasure from following heart, from heart flow, from being danced. So that's what is doing this, not really me, not anything you see here. And that one's a bit too tricky to explain at 2 a.m., so I'll just leave it there. Catch my vibe, as they say. That will explain it. Better yet, come find me in heart. And so I said, namaste. But I'm going to go on a little longer here. Something I wanted very much to share with you was, it's going to be a neat trick to put it into words. Being true to you and being true to the now moment is priceless. These are our riches, friends. These are our gems. When you sit in such intense appreciation and amazement over the beauty you perceive in something or someone, that you're just almost, your body's almost quivering with the intensity of it. There's no one richer than you on the planet. Gifts that have no earthly price are ours. And they're found, of course, within what I call heart, but it's just a word. Don't let words get in your way ever, at all. Now, one of the things that's challenging is not having expectations. It's a thing that's very useful in 3D, and the logical mind has a hard time with letting go of its expectations. It has visions of what it wants, of how it thinks things will turn out. It has all kinds of beliefs that generate these expectations. What I was wanting so much to share with you was that those expectations violate your now. They take you away from it. They take you out of it. And there's a time for that. There's a time for working out a business plan or something like that. But when it comes to your spiritual life, I'm suggesting that expectations are not your friend. The now is where every gem and every gift is. Only in the now. That's where they're given. That's where they're presented. But you've got to be present, or they'll pass you by. I mean, you don't lose them, you just don't gain them. They stay in potential for you. All right? Things you haven't accessed because you weren't present. And mind looks at this as a great big challenge. But I want to encourage everyone to get out of the future, leave it alone, and get out of the past too, of course. You'll find the emptiness by doing this. Mind fills itself up with future and past. That's how it keeps itself occupied. And while it's occupied, it's kind of hamster wheeling along, you know, the brain churn thing. And that creates enough kind of like static noise that it gets in the way of you tuning in deeply. Remember, the conscious mind is only 5% of the mind, not of you, just of the mind, of this one lifetime. 5%. It's just not anything like complete. It's not you. It's not your wholeness. It doesn't contain that, so it can't give it to you. All right? It's not there. As I often say, wrong tool for the job. It depends on what you're doing. For the spiritual, I don't like to call it work because it's joy. So for spiritual purposes, don't go to mind. And one of the ways to de-link or disconnect from it is to be self-observant and stay out of the future, stay away from expectations. Now, use them when they're appropriate. I'm saying when you're meditating, when you're focusing, when you're in heart, when you want to be in heart. Disconnect from expectations. You don't know what awakening is like, so don't pretend that you do. See, mind has all these pretensions that it has beliefs. It has ideas about what things are going to be. And it's kind of like prophecy, you know. Some of it comes out, some of it doesn't. But if you really, really want to get high on heart, disconnect from all expectations. Anytime you find yourself spread out over time, whether it be in the past or in the future, disconnect. Just stop. Just stop. And observe. Only you see, now you're present because you stopped. Now you're present. And so suddenly your observing is juiced. It's more powerful. You can bring clarity to bear because you're here. You're now here. Folks, there is such an immense power in this. And so now, as you observe, it's going to be and become crystal clear when mind is at work, because you won't be in the now here. And you'll be able to spot it. Now, I'm not suggesting, see, we don't want mind to beat up on us. We don't want mind to try to run the show. Well, don't beat up on mind, all right? Don't push it around. One of the worst things we can do is try to turn off thought, try to take the mind and make it shut up. That's doing violence to it. And that's doing to it what we don't want it to do to us. And from this couple of rungs up on the ladder thing, I can see that that's just not the best way. Now, it's a way, and it's a way that worked for me in the past. It got me to where I am now, you know. So there's nothing in me anymore to condemn anything or anyone. It's all useful. It's just in the right tool for the right job, in the right placement, for the right purpose. It's all perfect. Okay? So we have to learn to trust what our now brings us. And when you know that it's perfect, you're more present and you have more clarity to perceive that. So when you de-link, and it's a bit hard and shocking at first because you don't realize the extent to which you're not present. You don't realize the extent to which you're off in the future. And a lot of us are way lost in the past, just churning over and over and over. This didn't go right, or this one said that, or, you know, I want to do this, but last time I did it, that had, you know, all of that is mind churn. Okay? And it's not useful. You're not present when that's going on if you're paying it attention. Did you pick that up? That can go on, and it's not a problem as long as you ignore it. Don't try to stop mind. Observe it instead. And when you realize it's mind acting, de-link, disconnect, and look away. Look straight back into heart. So in a way, you turn your back on mind, and it can do what it wants. I mean, there's nothing wrong with thoughts. And a mind is a very intelligent, it's a highly intelligent thing. It will catch on. All right? It's also a bit like a little child in that it wants you to pay attention to it. Especially at first. See, mind being used to being totally 100% in control at all times, pretty much, except maybe when you're praying or something. It has a hard time being placed in second place instead of first. And so you go through stuff with it simply because you've identified with it. We all have. There's nothing wrong with this. All right? And so it'll get depressed, it'll get angry, it'll get sneaky, it'll go through all kinds of stuff, tantruming in its own way, trying to hold on to control. And you need breathing space from that. You're going to feel that. You're going to be aware of it. And initially, especially when you're not self-observing, you're going to think you're depressed, you're angry, you're whatever it is that mind is. You're going to think that's you. And this is when it comes in handy to know you are not mind. You have a mind. You are not a mind. And it doesn't hurt to know that the conscious mind is also this little 5% thing. See, by knowing this, by going at it this way, you are taking more and more of your power back. You're remembering who you are. And in the end, you're going to see that you're also reprogramming your mind. We are divine royalty. We are kings and queens. And we've been taught that we were paupers. And we believed it. We bought into it. And so that's how we've acted. Not knowing that because we were source, the power of our beliefs was so immense that it would bring it about. And so we've lived like paupers. Stay in heart. Stay away from the whole money concept. That's not what I'm talking about here. Money is irrelevant. You see, when people want money, if they haven't looked at it very deeply, they don't realize it's not the money. It's what it will buy. And it's not what it will buy, it's the happiness they're after. They feel that this, that, or the other will bring happiness. So money is really just a medium of exchange. It's not even important or necessary. Besides, we can get so high on joy, on simple appreciation, that if you could bottle it and sell it, oh my God, you'd really be rich. But we are rich. See, that's the thing. We all are. These kings and queens that we are, as we slowly come back to ourself, capital S, take our power back. Eventually, we take up our scepter of authority. And we're taking authority over our own life, our own self. That's all. But in a very magical way, that's enough. It's more than enough. All change goes from the micro to the macro, from the within to the without. And so as we change inside, as we make the little changes and adjustments, every little thing, you're going to see later how powerful that adjustment was that you just made. This is the beauty that hindsight can deliver. When we look back on something and we see the thing that we thought was so challenging, so painful, so terrible, maybe we even contemplated suicide over it. Get a few miles down the road and look back, and often enough you'll see that was the making of you. That was the catalyst that finally brought to bear the intensity that you needed to find yourself. It's all beautiful, my friends. We've been taught, I'm not usually up at this hour. It's 3 a.m. and I have a whole house purifier, water purifier, and so it's set to discharge at this time. That was strange. I don't even know if you can hear it. Okay, so each little thing is not little, and it's a really good idea to give up all of your beliefs, and you don't have to throw them away. Just pull out any attachment to them. Let it be okay if something that you once believed turns out to be false. Let that be fine. You know? Just look at the example I've given for the way I initially made an enemy out of mind, and yet that served me. That was useful. That was a way to get from total disempowerment to where I am now. Okay? So everything is beautiful in its own way, as somebody once said. And with that, I guess I'll say namaste.